hunt at night, the past. Roskarn stood at the forward viewports, a smile playing at the edge of his scarred lips. Shadows, thin and jagged, cut across his midnight blue armor as he gripped the hilt of his blade in anticipation. Out there, the Iron Hands fleet was pulling away from the Xenos satellites, engines burning hard as they angled deeper into the system. The silent lament had translated at the fringe of the ingress point and now drifted in utter darkness, every lumen extinguished, every auger bank muted. Silent running, no trace save for the predatory patience of its crew. So far the ruse had worked. The Loyalists suspected nothing. That did not surprise Raskarn. His Iron Hands brothers were little more than servitors crammed into ceramite shells, slaves to the Mechanicum's creed of iron over flesh. They called themselves Astartes, but what was left of their humanity? No Night Lord's vessel would dare traverse the void without knowing everything around it. They were hunters. They lived by shadows. Night Lords were masters of pursuit, of stealth, of patient killing. The Iron Hands? They were merely functional, stubborn, resilient, and brutish, yes, unafraid of augmetics, but every limb of steel and servo robbed them of soul. What joy could such husks know? They could never feel the exhilaration of the hunt, the delicious thrill when prey realized its doom, the ecstasy of the kill. Still, Raskarn admitted, their course puzzled him. A lone Iron Hands fleet translating again and again, erratically, as if to cover their tracks. At first he thought it a ploy to lose pursuit, but after so many jumps, absurd. They had not even looked to their baffles, not a single sweep of their rearguard. No light frigate trailing to watch their wake. As any true hunter would. It made no sense. Where are they going? The words slipped from his lips, but an answer came all the same. They are making for the planet in system, Talon Centurion, came the quiet reply of a chapter serf hunched over the Auspex consoles. It is on no chart. Raskarn rolled his eyes. I can see that, whelp. It is intent I want, not position. The serf stammered, lowering his head. I do not know intent, Lord. Raskarn leaned forward, the ghost light of the derelict Eldari station across their bow, playing across his scarred features. Well, it is the first time they've troubled to make orbit. Clearly they are searching for something, and it seems they have found it. He cast his gaze into the gloom. Have our infiltrators reported anything? From the shadows, the Dread Speaker answered, his whisper like a breath on the neck. Talon leader Nadrek reports the crew knows little, but there is a cabal among the officers, perhaps loyal to the War Master. Raskarn gave a sharp nod. Loyal to Horus or not, they took too long to take a side. They can die together, and what use is an Iron Hand to the new Imperium, save as raw scrap? He chuckled darkly. The Dread Speaker tilted his head, pale light glinting off his helm's lenses. They also hold 3 Luna Wolves prisoner. One among them is Consul Adharati Lior. Raskarn's smile faltered. He shifted uneasily. His reputation suggests he'd have had more wit than to let himself be taken. The Dread Speaker's voice was oily, patient. Perhaps fortune favors us. Returning such a prize would endear our legion further. Promised gifts are scarce these days. Raskarn barked a laugh. Gifts given for service are fleeting. The wolves can rot with their thralls. The Auspex operator cleared his throat nervously. Lord, the Loyalists are maneuvering into orbit. Raskarn's gauntlets squealed against the grip of his blade as he rose. Good. Ready a Thunderhawk. I will take my Atramentar down ahead of them. Prepare a snare. I will see with my own eyes what they seek. He turned to the Dread Speaker. Whatever it is, if I deliver it to the War Master, the rewards will outweigh a warp rat and a few mongrel wolves. The Dread Speaker bowed his head slightly. I will be at your side, Lord, to savor your victory. No, Raskarn cut him off. Keep the silent lament in shadow. When I signal, teleport my Talon to me and bombard the field. Then strike the Iron Hands fleet. Nadrek and his men will cut the throat from their battleship. We will make it our flagship, my prize for the Gene Father. The Dread Speaker's lip curled beneath his helm. Already he was turning over plans. Stealth mines, boarding pods, the joy of cutting apart a Loyalist fleet to claim a great warship. Raskarn strode from the bridge, a spring in his step. The lumen-dim crew bowed low, though his attention was already fixed on the kill to come. But among the hunched silhouettes at the Auspex banks, one serf stiffened. His screen pulsed, an echo. He ran the sweep again, hands trembling as the pulse sang out into the void. The return came faint but sure, from behind one of the relic Eldari stations, drifting in pursuit of the Iron Hand's fleet. His breath quickened. The cogitator rattled out an identification scroll. He tore it free with shaking hands. Class, Frigate, 10th Astartes Legion, Loyalist, possible ident, Iron Brace, Ferrous Helm, Steel Pinion, Lumen Spark. A Loyalist ship was following them. The serf glanced furtively. Overseers were distracted, laughing softly at some private jest with the dread speaker. He slid the parchment into his sleeve where it nestled against a few tattered scraps of the Lectitio Divinitatis. He purged the pict feed, dumped the cogitator's memory core. With one hand he resumed his scans, face blank, while the other tapped an idle rhythm against the comms key, like fingers to a silent hymn. On board the Steel Pinion, Lieutenant Scythian Cerberus stood by the viewports, motionless save for the occasional measured pace across the deck. Out in the black, he could just make out the faint pinpricks of the Iron Hand's fleet, their brute force plasma drives stabbing white fire into the void. His posthuman vision traced them easily, just visible at the edge of Auspec's range. Beyond that, there was nothing but the endless dark. Lieutenant Hālgengas, acting shipmaster of the Steel Pinion, sat upon the command throne. Though Cerberus outranked him, this was Hālgengas's vessel, and the throne was his to keep. He shifted his weight and spoke, voice dry. "You'll wear out that grill if you stare through it much longer." Cerberus did not look back. His jaw was tight, his tone pensive. "I don't like it." Hālgengas gave a slow nod. "Yes, you've said so, but orders are orders." Cerberus turned sharply, voice edged with frustration. "We should be there. Our place is with the Praetor. You know what the consul is like, and I wouldn't trust Carrion to leash him." He turned back to the viewport, gauntlet resting against the glass. "What is this Volmir anyway? A dead Eldari world. What could ruins possibly tell us?" Cerberus rested his chin on his augmetic hand, the iron fingers cold against his jaw. "Whatever it is, the consul will root it out. Then we can return to the war." Hālgengas's eyes stayed fixed on the distant starlight. "If anyone makes it back." Cerberus closed his eyes, listening. The steady thrumming of the frigate's drives carried through the hull, a deep, almost comforting rhythm. "It's nothing but ruins. Whatever lies there cannot be much of a threat." Hālgengas gripped the arm of the command throne hard enough to make the metal groan. The consul demanded 5 additional librarians and an entire company of iron hands for this venture. "Don't delude yourself. Whatever we are walking into, it is a threat." Cerberus opened his eyes, met the lieutenant's hard gaze. "That's why we're out here. Eyes and ears of the Praetor. Have faith, Hālgengas." Hālgengas gave a grunt that might have been a laugh, though there was no humor in it. "Faith. I've heard too much of that word. Faith is what damned us to this war." Cadon sat apart near the Vox pit, helm removed, his own set linked to the Steel Pinion's primary receiver. He let the banter of the 2 lieutenants wash over him like background static. Eyes were of little use in this theater. Ears, that was where his true talent lay. Snatches of transmissions bled through, fragments of the Loyalist fleet's chatter that his training caught and pieced together. An adept on the Lament of Desire conferred with a counterpart aboard the battlecruiser Eternal Scion, arranging troop deployments to the planet below. Numbers, staging grounds, resupply timings, all mundane, all useful. A terse transmission from Erastes Carrion himself to the light cruiser Lament of Helrius, ordering his Cataphractes squad to stand by for drop pod reserve. The Iron Captain's growling voice came across the ether like the clank of chains. Another thread, almost lost in static, a deck serf aboard the frigate Iron Gauntlet complaining to a counterpart on the Void's burden about shortages of recycled water rations. Their hushed laughter followed, bitter and dry. A litany from the Ferrous Helm, the deck chantry intoning the rite of ignition as their plasma engines were brought to full burn. Caden leaned back, closing his eyes, letting it all filter through him, the great fleet's pulse beating across the void. The background static rippled again, distorting into a grating hiss. Cadon adjusted the brass dials, narrowing the filters to deaden the Vox interference from the nearby star. The low pulse tone was still there. He had heard it before, buried in the last few transmissions. At first he had dismissed it as noise, a cogitator echo, a cogitator ranging sweep, something irrelevant, but the sound persisted. Now it threatened to drown out the fleet traffic entirely. He began isolating the frequency, narrowing it strand by strand. At first, he thought to instruct the receiver's machine spirit to edit it out of future runs. But then he froze. It was on the chapter's high band. Strange. That particular frequency had not been used since the late years of the Great Crusade. It had been dropped precisely because it was unstable, too prone to interference in the tumult of battle. His Vox picked it up only because the 10th Legion had kept it alive in its vaults, a private channel reserved for Mechanicum vessels and the Iron Hands. No other legion maintained it now. He listened. The sequence of distorted beeps and shrill pulses ended, then began again. Caden translated the high binaric battle signal. His blood chilled at the message. Seeking you, danger. This is silent lament, traitor, stalking 10th Legion fleet, Emperor Will's destruction. Then came a latitude and longitude, void depth shifting by degrees, a position locked against the local star. The signal repeated, again and again. Caden placed the receiver down carefully, understanding the meaning. He called for a scribe. Slowly he chanted the coordinates, and when the parchment was filled, he stood, dropping it onto the overseer's lectern at the Auspex pulpit. The overseer blinked, expression blank, then read. His lips tightened as he turned to instruct his officers. Caden paid him no mind. He crossed the bridge, moving to the broad void windows. Eyes and ears, the praetor had told him. He had been ears. Now it was for his eyes. Lieutenant Scythian Cerberus still leaned against the viewing port. His gaze lingered on the stars, but he glanced at Caden. You look more ashen than usual, Caden. What ails you? Caden nodded to the dark beyond, then turned toward the throne. Shipmaster Halitrax, can you bring up a hololith? Your Auspex adept has the coordinates. Halitrax frowned, then flipped open the pict screen built into his throne. He studied the scrolling runes, lips tightening, before giving a clipped command. The hololith shimmered into being. Their fleet was displayed, lines of pale light moving steadily toward the blue orb of the planet. Another faint line marked their own frigate, Steel Pinion, shadowing from the rear. Then the sweeps began to resolve. Passive Auspex echoes formed, faint lights in the void between. Slowly they grew, point by point, until the outline of a great warship emerged, an Imperial battlecruiser. Brother Mordak stepped forward, a weighty recognition tome cradled in his hand. His voice was grim. Silent Lament, flagship of Talon Centurion Raskarn, Night Lords. Caden's chest tightened. He drew in a slow breath. It has been stalking us for a long time, waiting for the right moment to strike, or to summon reinforcements. Scythian Cerberus gave a dry smile, bitter humor cutting through. That is not the Night Lord's way. They won't have told anyone. They hunt in silence. This prey is theirs alone. Mordak shook his head. Then fortune is with us. They never saw us slip from the fleet. They do not know we follow them. Cerberus grew somber. Faith, then. For once it pays. But what are we to do? A single frigate cannot contest a battlecruiser, and if we warn the fleet, the Night Lords will pounce before the message is finished. Halitrax leaned back in the throne, gauntleted hands tightening on the rests. We have boarding torpedoes, but there was no conviction in his tone. Caden's eyes fixed on the hololith. The silent lament loomed there, a phantom predator gliding unseen, its position betrayed only by the old forgotten channel, a stealth ship, invisible, unsuspecting. He felt the seed of a plan forming, grim and reckless. His voice was calm. I may have an idea.